sorry this did not come out in print that was readable, but essentially this is what a study, this is a kind of review of a study happened in Australia. Procter & Gamble, they had listed out what the description of the organizations were. I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. What the objectives of the partnership were between the children, Save the Children, and Procter & Gamble. They had 4 very clear primary objectives, because if you can't put it on the board and see what happens, then how the hell are you going to measure it, right? So they wanted to do certain things, what the activities were going to be. The promotion was complemented by a number of Procter & Gamble staff who did things. And I'm saying this because when we get into the planning over here, it may be overwhelming, because it's overwhelming to me until you break it down. So, what communications mechanisms, what the results were, and this is, of course, looking back that they had some pretty significant increases in stuff. So I didn't want to scare you off to think you only have to have complex plans. Dwight Eisenhower said planning is very important, but plans are of little value. So you have to do the appropriate amount of planning because things change. And we're going to get into that here in just a couple of slides. So why are nonprofits turning to cause marketing? And that question, again, I get asked when I'm out talking to nonprofit groups is, where do I find a business to play with? And when I'm in business groups, where do I find a nonprofit to play with? They really need, the need is up. They got to have increased revenue. They also have to enhance visibility of their message. They have to extend their message. And you guys, as businesses, if you use those things that we talked about earlier, your lists, your influence, your everything, you can help them extend their message. There are services sitting over here. Well, while there's increased need, there are excess services in some areas that people don't even know they could get. Things that are funded and things that could happen, and nobody knows that. So if you are a nonprofit and you hook up with a business, the business has 100,000 people on their mailing list, what have you got? Project Cure, Luna Roasters, okay? Project Cure now has gotten in front of all of Luna Roasters' customers. Okay, if they don't buy the coffee, like, I don't drink coffee, I just buy it from my restaurant, but I love what they're doing. Might they get a volunteer or a donation out of that? Quite possibly. So you also, that's a connection to the network of employees, suppliers, distributors, and other contacts. You get expertise. And here's 2 big ones right here. Can I put the screen down a little bit? 76% of people had a more positive image of a nonprofit when associated with a corporation, assuming it was an Enron or a WorldCom, the right corporation, and 70% were more likely to donate when the nonprofit has a corporate partner. Okay, now, how many of you heard the term social proof? Social proof? Social proof. I was in the restaurant business. Imagine this. I ran a bar and a restaurant in New Orleans. On Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the restaurant only sat, or the bar only sat 125 people. We had movable walls. It appeared to be full. And people would stand in line. I used to work the door. We charged $5 to get in, but when we were empty, we charged nothing. As soon as we got full, we charged $5 and they stood in line. On the busier nights, we moved to 250 people. And during Mardi Gras, we moved to 450 people. We had movable walls. I thought it only happened in the bar business. The social proof was people, do you go to the truck stop that has no trucks for breakfast? No. Are we the first one in the restaurant? No. Venture capital. At the DaVinci Institute the other night, at the Startup Junkie Underground, David Gold was talking and say, nobody wants to be the first VC to invest in your business, right? But we'll be part of a syndicate. We won't lead, but we'll follow. We're a bunch of sheep, right? So when you get, as a nonprofit, when you get an association with the right for-profit business, guess what? Other businesses, oh, it's good enough for Home Depot. Why, it's good enough for Target. Might be good enough for me, right? Well, it's safer over here because Target's here. So the nonprofits need to learn how to work with the businesses better, just as businesses need to learn how to work with the nonprofits. Does that make sense? Social proof. We don't want to be the first, but we'll follow. So the skill set for cause marketing, pretty small skill set. You got to be inspired, you got to be a visionary, you got to be connected to your heart, you got to be a problem solver, you got to be real clear. real clear. Communication skills, collaboration and team building skills, transparency, authenticity, truthful, honest, patience, 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 patience. How many cause marketing initiatives move at exactly the speed you thought they would? None. It really doesn't happen, except rare occasions where things come together perfectly when, you know, the stars and the moons are all lined up. Positive attitude and patience, probably as important as anything. And of course, a sense of humor. No one wants to work with a grump. What's the downside of cause marketing? Well, some people think it's over-commercialization. At these conferences I've been at, there's been criticism of Susan G. Komen Foundation for doing too much with too many sponsors. I'm not sure if that's valid or if it's just people who are jealous, because they've done an incredible job of raising resources. I don't know for sure. But sometimes there's this thing that you may have heard called mission drift, and that's for nonprofits who drift off of the mission because of the impact of a potential large partnership, whether you're a big or a small nonprofit. That also happens with businesses too. Your core could be right here and you're focused and you fall in love with this thing over that's way outside of what you do, and it gets so exciting you go chasing after that. So you may drift from your mission too. So if you're a nonprofit, you may have loss of corporate donations because people hear that all that coffee's getting sold and Project Cure's doing so good. You know, Bono raised $50 million through the Project Red campaign, I think it was. And so he has $50 million, why should I give to him? Well, they really need a couple $100 million probably to do the job effectively. There's probably other things you could list here. So the downside of cause marketing, to me, is it's there, it's real, but it's not as not as big as the upside. The downside isn't. So, legal pitfalls. Bottom line, there's this thing called the Better Business Bureau standard driving principles that consumer must clearly understand how their purchases influence a donation. And there is a, let's see, I thought I brought with me, maybe I put it away. I bought a book of legal stuff. You should, before you go onto a cause marketing, you ought to think about, is this significant enough to where I need to get legal advice? I'm not a lawyer, I'm not going to tell you to get legal advice or not, but I'm saying if it was me, you need to get legal advice. And there aren't a whole lot of attorneys, if you're doing something of significance, who are around that are doing this. The reason for that is, and we saw earlier, there's about 40 different state regulations in 40 different states. In Colorado, I think the regulation reads that if half of the proceeds of the event or of the campaign go to the nonprofit, then you have to register with the state and you end up in a commercial joint venture arrangement and it gets kind of complex. Bottom line, the attorney, when I took this legal class, said, you know, there's so much going on that they're not currently worried about people who are doing good things, who are doing things authentically and transparently where no one's getting hurt because they don't have the enforcement time. He said that's the reality of it. The legality of it is that you need to be really careful and you probably ought to get legal advice. The reality is that if you do a promotion that brings in money for a nonprofit and it's all above board and you say, I'm going to give, you know, up to $10,000 on the purchases of this thing, I'm going to give that to them, and you put on your website that I proudly gave and here's a check and the nonprofit's going and we love you, etc. They're not going to come and probably do anything. I mean, even if you didn't follow the absolute letter of the law, the reality of it is there's not the enforcement stuff. Employee involvement doesn't cost you anything. Expertise, mailing to your mailing list. A lot of things you can do in this cause-inspired model that do not require going to the state and doing stuff. So, authentic and transparent will keep you out of most trouble. Authentic and transparent. No BS. No false promises. As that thing selling, we're going to give some money to breast cancer somewhere. So, some money, some percentage, we don't tell you how much. So, all right, this is my roadmap. It's pretty simple. It's not a 12-step program, it's a 9-step program. Develop a game plan, identify your assets, pick your cause, get buy-in internally. That's what you do before you go out to the world. It's internal work, and we'll delve down a little deeper in this in a second. Then you choose your partner. After you've chosen your cause, you build a relationship that gets started, you implement, you measure, and then you expand. Simple. So, Deming's one of my favorite quotes, 85% of success determined by first 15% of planning. Even a better quote than Eisenhower had, I think. So, these are just questions that you need to ask yourself. Does my business have a social mission? If you don't, then why would you think about cause marketing? What do you care about? What things do I care about if you're the business owner or manager? Do I care about, what kind of causes, if I'm an individual, what do I care about? What does my business care about? I might care about cats, but I'm a dog food manufacturer. How is that going to be for me to be consistent in what I do and energize this? If you have employees, what kind of things do they care about? It's the internal buy-in. You want them to become the brand ambassadors, which you can't do unless you have what? You have some knowledge of what they care about. And if you're the manager of a business instead of the owner, you don't want to probably step off of that cliff unless you know what the owner cares about. If you have investors, okay? So you got to look at it and say, from a business standpoint, I'm over here as a business person. Does it make sense as a business person to do this cause? Back to the cone numbers. People are looking and saying, 63% say what you do as a business, is it what causes you support? Is that consistent with, it might not involve money, it might be who you are as a business and what your products are and what your services are. That was never talked about 2 or 3 years ago that I could see. That was just not one of the things that was important. So what do we want to accomplish in our community? What are our goals? If community involvement is one of the goals, it might not involve money, it might be volunteers. There's tons of people who go to Project Cure and repack medical supplies. I was there one day visiting the Doug, the CEO, and they had a whole crew from a law firm that spent 6 hours there. And they were having a great time. So what do we want to accomplish over 6 months? And then, how do you want people to feel about you? How do you not spin this, but how do you get this message out to the world of what you're doing and how the positive impact is? And there's a dozen or two more questions, but that's the vein. You need to be introspective. I want to jump back for a second. One thing that I forgot that's a critical piece of cause marketing, and I just now flashed on it, there's a thing called social capital or trust, which is an intangible that I don't know if there's a trust meter, it goes like this. And the story was told in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and I didn't think of things in this vein until I heard this story. It's a little company called McDonald's. You may have heard of them. 90 gazillion sold. McDonald's, for all its faults in the world, its fries and its stuff, is really a pretty good company. They've worked really hard to build their brand with Ronald McDonald House and with a lot of things they've done. But they get perceived in many ways, and I think their food, you eat it and you get too much weight and stuff, and so there's some drawbacks. They hire people in the community, they work really hard on a company level and also on the franchise level. And what they are working for, according to the senior vice president who was doing this presentation, they won an award from the Cause Marketing Forum, was to build trust in the community. That if you don't like the quick service, the fast food, maybe you shouldn't eat here, but when you walk in the door, we will do this, it'll be consistent, we'll treat you right, we'll do these things, and that's what we'll do. That's the trust we want to do. If we hire you as an employee, we'll train you, we'll cover your butt, we'll do whatever we can do to serve you. And a few years ago, there was an example of this that I had never heard this story. There was a riot in LA when some guy named Rodney King got beat up with the cops. It's massive rioting. And in the riot area in Los Angeles that was pretty significant, there were 33 McDonald's. And there wasn't a single bit of damage done to those 33 McDonald's. All around them, next door to them, things were burned. Total trash, stolen, ripped off, torn to the ground. And they were amazed, and they showed a film of the owners going, I'm so grateful because I wouldn't have been able to rebuild, I didn't have enough insurance, etc. So they actually sent a team in to ask the gang leaders why. And here's what the answer was. We can trust these guys. When our gang crap is over, we know McDonald's will hire us. They'll give us a break. I won't say today because that would be a cliche, but they'll give us a break. They'll hire us, they'll train us, and it gives us a way out. And so we put out the word that these McDonald's were not to be touched, and they weren't. Now that is pretty powerful. And the owner said that happened only because we are involved in our community in a way that is beyond selling burgers and fries and shakes and all the other stuff. So I was going, wow, that's pretty amazing. He said, and then there's another example. And he said, he showed a cover of Business Week. It said McDonald's is trashed or something about 2.5 years ago. A little movie called Super Size Me came out. Well, you know, McDonald's feeds 52 million people a day. 52 million people a day. You know what? They reacted positively to Super Size Me. You know what they did? You notice yogurt, apples, grilled, wraps. They got rid of some of the supersized programs. I noticed the other day they have an 89 cent all you can chug down a large soda back. Supersize Me again. Times must be rough at McDonald's. But anyway, and the cover of Business Week, after doing that, they had sufficient social capital in the bank that their customers did not abandon them. Before the movie, they were doing 52 million customers a day, and after the movie, they were doing 53.8 million a day. So, trust and social capital, intangibles, but a very important piece here. And as you're looking about how you want those members to feel about you in the marketplace, that is a very, very important piece. Does that make sense? So there's in the book I've got about 30 questions when I get it finished. But there's a lot of questions, but it's self-examination internally. So what kind of assets do we have? We have time, money, we have expertise, there's other things could go here. So what is your annual budget? Well, what are your dollars that you have to do one of these programs, whether it's just give money away, or if you're going to do a cause marketing program, someone internally is going to have to manage it. Okay? Is it true? Are you PR people, or does somebody have to manage these programs, or do they self-manage inside a company? No, they do not self-manage very well anyway. I mean, you can try it, but you might as well not do it. So someone in here is going to have to take an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 or 10, depending on how complex it is, and manage that internally. So there is a dollar placed on that time. And many people forget about that. Is that, in your experience? I'm getting a head nod here up front. My experience is, oh, we never thought that we, it's like, can't do a meeting, can't do a meeting, can't do a meeting, can't do a meeting, can't do a meeting. So there is some money here that's going to have to be expended in order to put something in place. It's different. I can give that money away, whip out my wallet, whip out my card, write a check. That's philanthropy. I can do that with less effort, although I need to do some due diligence, but with less effort, particularly if I want to re-give to it, an organization, than doing something that is different and maybe inspired. So, what kind of time do we give to, what can our company do? I was at a Smith Barney office in Southern California last Friday, and there was a lady there who, Smith Barney gives an award for if you volunteer 100 hours a year, you get an award. This lady hit her 100 hours in January. I don't know how she does it. She did 869 hours was the plaque on the wall, volunteer time. She's in Rotary, she's in 3 other groups, she does this, she does that. And you know what she said? I never prospect. I haven't made a cold call in 15 years. Don't have to. So there are companies that give time off, paid time off. What's the average? $17 now, I think the IRS says the average is value of a volunteer hour when you go into a nonprofit. So there are companies that match dollars for hours. There are companies in a apparel company back in New York that I ran into that takes every hour that you volunteer, they give $17, or whatever the IRS says that rate is. So, and you get paid too. It's not like you lose your salary. So, what can you do there, and is that an easy program for you to do? So you might not be able to run an elaborate transaction-driven cause marketing program, but you might be able to do something with the employees. And if you involve the employees, they might say, heck no, I ain't volunteering. Or you might have somebody like Kim is who can do 100 hours a month in some fashion. So, in-kind giving. Sometimes that's in-kind of expertise. What if you have the voice, as Sheila talked about? What if you have marketing skills? What if you have database skills? What kind of skills do you have inside your organization that you could give, including what kind of product? Okay? Lots and lots of product could do. So, what kind of services? Those are things that you need to think about as you're doing your own internal audit of yourself to see what is it that we can do to make this thing work. So, I say pick the cause first. Because guess what, folks? Nonprofits go out of business just like for-profits do. I don't know if it's many of them, I haven't seen the numbers, but I know multiple nonprofits that have gone away. And I coined a phrase I call cause washing, based off of the greenwashing, and that is where people jump in to grab a cause because it's a huge nonprofit and they want to really work with them because there's a value. The driving factor has to be here, something you care about, something your employees care about. It's not just about who has the biggest. Causes don't change, so if your cause is prevention for cruelty to animals, where in your area that you want to work in, how many nonprofits are there, and then you begin the evaluation process. So be smart and sensitive. What do you care about? Employees, investors, board of directors. I learned that the hard way once. So getting the internet, or getting the internal commitment and the buy-in. Again, I've always believed in taking it down to the level of the people who are going to be involved in doing it. What is important to them? So, if you get the employees, if you have employees involved from the very beginning, that will most likely increase buy-in, and buy-in is very important. The volunteer rates won't be good, and when Greg was said about the lady who only works at Boulder Community Hospital because of their recycling and sustainable practices, I think if we ask more, we'd probably find out. Encourage them to participate in as many ways as possible, and some of them will get deeply involved and some won't. Anybody in the Rotary here? I don't know what your experience has been in Denver, but the young lady out in Orange County is very active in Rotary, and she said now that the women are doing 80% of the work in Rotary, which is why they're doing more work than the men ever did. She's a little prejudiced, but she really likes to volunteer and she likes to organize. She said, I have no technical skills, but I'm a good organizer and I can get more people to volunteer and do stuff. So again, finding out from your employees, the key to implementing is finding out what it is that people want to do if you have employees to get involved. And then I bet you every organization has some cultural obstacles you have to crawl over as you work for the buy-in. It's like, I would expand this to say, get everybody who could be involved inside your company to buy in, because again, if you're trying to build customer loyalty, Make-A-Wish works perfectly with things remembered, where there might be, the World Wildlife Federation might not. I mean, who knows what works, but I think if you could get your customers involved, that'd be fantastic. So you might do a focus group. You might just ask them. It depends on what kind of business you got. We're doing something, next Tuesday night, and we're trying to figure out, what the best way to make an impact in our community. And I think it would be pretty amazing what you'd find out. I don't think most of us know our customers well enough to know exactly what they tell us. So great idea. So probably a whole bunch more we could think of, and then choose your partner. Okay, partner match. Boy, I tell you. Most of us probably don't spend enough time doing this. The nonprofit's brand, just as yours, is one of your key assets. And what I've learned is that people in both worlds need to work to protect, number one, and two, to enhance your brand. Whatever you do, and your brand is the sum total of what people in the world see you as. Okay, good, bad, or indifferent. It's what you are, and oftentimes you can control parts of that. But I think with the internet, you can control less and less of that, because people are going to post their opinions and blogs and whatever else. So we have some brand anarchy. Here's a good story. I was at a conference, and there was people there from the American Cancer Society, and this is a brand control story. A volunteer approached them about doing the Relay for Life in Second Life. You familiar with Second Life? It's the avatar-driven thingy, and so they said no, and this is the hand signal given by the person who was making the presentation to them, and he went ahead and went into Second Life and sold the luminarias for the Relay for Life and raised $5,000. They told him that nobody could do that because they hadn't approved it. Internet anarchy. You're number two. He goes to them. What a wonderful volunteer. He asked permission first. They said no. He said, He went in and raised $40,000. Second Life again. And year three, he raised more than that, about 60 or 70,000. So our brands are in turmoil, but every instance we can, We need to protect our brand, and when you're starting to talk about that relationship, who you associate with is very, very important. So who are they? What are their assets? And by assets, not necessarily the financial assets, but what do they bring to the table? If you had a choice, quite frankly, if you were equally passionate about two causes, and two nonprofits, and you said they have a mailing list of 12, they have a mailing list of 1,000, tiebreaker goes to 1,000 from a business standpoint, right? So you have to know what you're getting into and have that conversation. What are they looking for? Why do they think they'd be a good partner? In my experience, having run many restaurants and other businesses, and we still get approached right now, not just for monetary donations and all sorts of stuff, probably 10 or 12 a week. I was at talking to the people from JetBlue, they get 70, she told me 70 proposals a week. 70 proposals a week, unsolicited. And I said, how many do you look at? She said, none. We never look at an unsolicited proposal. Ever, 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 ever. Don't have time. Stranger calling you and wants to build a relationship. That's old. Okay? Somebody calls us and says, look, I know the 4 areas that you care about. Somebody calls from nonprofits, I know you care about the kids, the environment, this and this. Here's what we do. We fit in one of your areas. They've done a little research. I'd like to talk to you and see what your needs are so that maybe we can work together, because we have volunteers and assets and passion and all this stuff. Maybe we can work together and we both get what we want. We can collaborate. What a unique idea. Instead of walking in going, please give me money. Here, unsolicited, please give me money, give me money, give me money. Which is how that's been going on for so long. So, why do they think they'd be a good partner? When you're having that conversation with them, and you want to know, there are some things I think that are important. Not the end all to be all, but how much of their money, are they efficient? How much of their budget goes to delivering the service that which they were destined and created to deliver, And how much goes to, how are they fiscally responsible? And I think as a small business owner, you have a little more flexibility than if you're a public company where you spend your money. When we started Make the Difference Network, we thought we would kind of be the overarching judge of the nonprofit world, and we quickly got off of that illusion. But like this Charity Navigator rates about 6,000, 7,000 nonprofits on certain criteria. And I was talking to a young lady who started a nonprofit called Glamour Gals. They go in and do makeovers for older women in nursing homes. Started out in memory of her grandmother, and she started doing it in New York, and now they have chapters in 60 cities. And it's turned into a teen leadership program. They had about $25,000 in cash donated to them 2 years ago. She paid herself like 18 or 20 grand. 23-year-old still lives at home because she can't pay herself enough to get out. By the criteria of many people, nobody should ever give money to Glamour Gals. By the strict financial criteria, but there's other things, there's other intangible assets you might want to look at and really talk to people and say, wow, these guys, yeah, they're not very efficient if you look at it from that standpoint, but look at the good they do in the world. I don't care about that 69% was spent on admin as opposed to what should be less than 35%. So be flexible and variable in there, but you need to ask the questions. And Tony Robbins says, you want better answers, ask better questions. Step 6. All right, now it's time to get started. So, how fast do you want to go? And that's a business decision. It's a personal and business decision based on where you've been in step 1, 2, and 3. If you know what kind of resources you have, I can put one full-time person of this because it's very important to us. I think it's going to be a very effective community and sales initiative. That's going to cost me $5,000 a month, and we want to go date for only a month with a right nonprofit, and we want to make it work. And if it works like we think, we want to get engaged. And then, as Scott Pansy said in here, demonstrate the best practices in social responsibility and structure for a 5, 10, or 15 years down the road. When entering a relationship like the Gap, use all the corporate assets you have. So if you're looking for just a date, like some people do in the world, that's okay, but be clear going in. But if you want to get to here with that long-term relationship with a nonprofit that is mutually beneficial, that is inspired, that brings you what you want, whatever that may be, you need to be very, very, very clear on that. So now then, pick a partner that wants the same thing you do, asking those questions. You want to get married, they just want to date. And the other thing here is, after marriage, occasionally something happens called divorce. So how will you amicably and with integrity and authenticity and not to hurt the brand of either party, how will you disengage? How do you disengage? Because you don't want the nonprofit telling their 10,000 friends that you suck, and they shouldn't want you telling your 10,000 customers that they suck, right? Nobody wins. That's a lose-lose situation, not a win-win-win-win. So those things need to be talked about up front. This is clarity, and I've found that occasionally in my life I've been reluctant to talk about those issues first. I thought they would solve themselves. Anybody guilty of self-solving issues without talking about them? And so I saw a great quote today that says, the truth shall set you free, but first it's going to make you very angry. So the truth of how we're going to engage here is very, very important. So that's the starting point. Then, how in the heck will you communicate? You got to have the ground rules. Let's start by communicating via telephone once a week. Okay, let's check in. I got a list of things I'm going to do. You have a meeting. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's the milestones. By next week, I will have done A, B, C, and D. We're going to talk about it on Tuesday. Tuesday comes, and you've only done A. Well, sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen. So you have to set up those regular communication things, because I guarantee you if you don't, what will happen? Nothing will happen good. Okay? It'll fall apart, or it will not be what it's supposed to be, and you'll be very disappointed. So who inside your organization will make the final decision on important items? Has anyone ever got caught up in committee hell? I spent a year once upon a time as the director of marketing of a nonprofit. I stepped out of the for-profit world in the nonprofit. I almost died. I can't move that slow. It hurts me to move that slow. I'm not wired like that. So I couldn't get the people on my board that we had at the nonprofit to decide on anything with less than 3 meetings. I couldn't make a decision in a month, no less than 3 months. It was killing me. So who is going to have decision? Do you both have to agree? Those are questions you've got to ask. And these are not all the questions, but those are some of the ones you have to be real clear. And if you don't agree at this point, what should you do? Eat, dive, abort mission. It's not going to work. I mean, the odds go down every time that you don't do this. The odds go up when you do this. I mean, I've seen these things be very smooth. I mean, and not to paint a dismal picture. Now you see why I'm just stretching. But this is where the implementation piece falls apart. People don't ask the questions. They don't get the answers. They don't get the commitments. They don't. When they do, it works beautifully. So there's many things. So implement, okay? So if you've done your planning, sometimes you kick off a one-day event, is different than a month-long or year-long drive, but it may be an event that kicks something off. So all the employees get involved. And part of the planning is, how are we going to implement? Well, we implement like this. We're going to do a year campaign to sell coffee. And we're going to kick it off with a coffee fest. We're going to all invite all of our friends into the Project Cure headquarters so people see what it's like. And Luna's going to provide the coffee, and we're going to fill the room up. And Channel 9 is coming, and Channel 7 is coming, and Channel 12 is coming, and Channel 42 is coming, and my YouTube guy is coming. And we're whipping out our little flip videos, and we're going to take videos of everyone. And life is good because, you know what? That's what you do in the internet age. Have you seen this little camera? It's called the Flip. It's a marvelous. Holds 2 gigabytes of storage, and the little USB thing whenever you're done. No more excuse for not being able to put video into a computer. It holds 2 hours of video. You can have this online. It has the software even to put it on YouTube. It's wonderful stuff. So what are you going to do? What kind of event, if it needs to be an event? Part of the plan again, part of the plan. So it's easier to get people on your team excited about a one-day event sometimes, right? So they all can show up at the same time and dress funny and drink coffee or give coffee away or do something, pack something and do something. And then you monitor how the team and the nonprofit are feeling along the way. Check in on the first day, on the 10th day. Not only the nonprofit and business communicating, but what's happening inside. And whoever owns it inside, it may be you, the owner. If you've got employees, somebody has to own the project internally. We said earlier, because if that doesn't happen, then it'll be kind of crazy. Questions? Other things we can add to this? You want to see the other 20 questions that I didn't put up there? No. So, but there are more. All right, never mistake knowledge for wisdom. So then measure the results. Let's just use, for instance, a transaction-driven thing. Someone had a very clear goal that said, I'm the business. I want to get X number of leads. In my sales process, that goes down to X number of customers, which equates to X number of unit sales. And if you had done the planning, you would say, I want to get 100 leads this month. Okay? That means we got to talk to I got to be involved with 1,000 people. I want to get 10 new customers and I want to sell 5 units of something, or whatever it is that you want to do. Now, there's this thing here called, this is a grid that was given out in San Diego. So here's some things you could look at. So direct resources, number of people visiting offices, how many unique visitors to a website, how many times you got mentioned in the press. And, you know, you're talking about here that if you were to get mentioned in the Union Tribune in San Diego, this was done at the University of San Diego, that you might get 850,000 impressions if there was an ad put by you and the nonprofit in there. That would be worth a couple $1,000. So you might get a human interest story. You might get mentioned in the San Diego Business Journal. You might get a company profile story in there. You might get in San Diego Family Magazine. You might get a human interest story. You might get on the promotional message. You might have to buy one and you might get one free. So there's a lot of ways to measure as you're setting your goals when you get to press impressions, when you get feedback, when your customers tell you what's going on. So back to the early plan. If you start looking at this stuff, then when you get to step 8, you can measure it. I suggest measuring early and measuring often, kind of like voting in Chicago. Vote early and vote often, they used to say. But if you don't measure at the milestones along the way, you won't know how to course correct. So at the end of the first month or end of the first quarter, say, wow, this is so great. You know, we sold 25 units of coffee the first day and we went to 50 and 100. Our goal was 20 and 60 and 80. Man, we're way ahead. Or our goal was 100 and 200 and 300. And then you know how you're doing, and then you can evaluate what you're doing. I talk to tons of businesses that have a foundation, even a small foundation with $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in it. Then they have a marketing budget over here, totally separate. They take 1% or 0.5%, or they take leftover. They fund that somehow, and depending on who you're talking to, I rarely talk to the foundation people because our business is not about getting a business to only donate. We'd like to see people donate from foundation money through us to their chosen nonprofit, but we'd like to see the marketing people end up with a sponsorship of some sort. So I go in to talk to the marketing person. I don't go in to talk to the person who's in charge of the foundation. So, and again, the lines are blurring, but there's still not every company the lines are blurring, but in general, there's still silos where we only give money from our foundation in philanthropic ways in this way. And generally, somebody has a very strong opinion there about what that is. And if they've been giving in a long history to certain types of causes, you might get them to shift within that cause area, but it's generally hard in my experience and what I hear from people to get them to jump out of giving to cats to jump out to giving to rabbits because we just love cats. And so if you're a nonprofit trying to go in and look at how you get to the right person, if you walk in and say, look, how do we work together? Okay, we know you have a foundation. We know that you do philanthropy. We'd like to be considered for that. What's your areas of interest? It's what, like JetBlue says, we don't look at anything unsolicited, but I think it's education, and you have 4 areas. Only in those 4 areas, if somebody even calls us and says we're in that area, we do even consider that. So you have to do the research. You have to know who you're talking to, and that's an important piece. And we could get into trying to forge these partnerships, just like I would say if you're a for-profit, you know, when I know what I care about, then I go out here and say, well, who's in this genre? I go, how would I find them? Well, I'd go to the Colorado Association of Nonprofits. I'd look them up at the Secretary of State's office. I'd go to GuideStar. I'd try to find somebody in my zip code or zip codes that I cared about, or in the same genre. I'd look and see, and I'd do my investigatory work. I'd see what they care about. If I was a nonprofit and I'm trying to get to your dollars, and you've got a marketing budget and you've got a philanthropy budget, I would do my same intelligence work and try to find out and walk in some fashion that made sense, so I could get your attention. Because if you come in, my experience is if you walk in stone cold without knowing kind of even what genre business cares about, and you're coming from the nonprofit world, the odds aren't as good as if you know where you're going. Well, and again, the industry is moving, and what was pounded in multiple times when I was in Chicago at the Cause Marketing Forum is that people want metrics. The philanthropic side wants metrics. They want a different metric than the sales metric, but they want to know, if it's a philanthropic side, they say, we're giving you $5,000 to send kids to camp, and it takes 500 kids. We want to know that 10 kids went, period. The Cause Marketing guys are saying, hey, we're doing this with you because we want to get 12 new customers. Then we want to know that we got 8 or 15 or 27 or whatever it is. It's the same accountability structure, just asking for different things. And I think it's going to get more and more as whatever happens with the stock market and the oil prices and the economy and the recession. I think it's going to get more and more to where people are going to demand those metrics. That's what everybody was saying in Chicago, that metrics. And some of them are tangible, some are not. Someone said, just show me what you did. Show me what you did. Take your cell phone, show me what you did. I'll believe it if we have a good relationship. If we have high trust, if we have low trust, low social capital, why am I playing with you anyway? So I think that's really important to look at in how each party approaches each other. And I'd love to teach this same 3 hours with a room full of nonprofits and half the room of for-profits, and teach them from the same material from the two different points of view, so they could be a common language, because it's as important to have the nonprofit to have metrics as well as it is for you. I mean, this is a two-way street, and you got to have that accountability. So volunteer hours. Then the intangibles are really hard to do. You know, I mean, you got to get a sense for what's going on, but you can't ignore the intangibles. And sometimes the intangibles are stories in the press where people really feel good. Some stories aren't worth much. Other stories are really good. You know, a video of you at the animal shelter shown on Channel 4 at 4 p.m. is not worth near as much as one shown at 5 or 10. And you in the background doing something versus you cuddling the dog and doing all the other stuff. I mean, there's a lot of intangibles there that you need to look at, but those somehow you need to at least pay attention to it. And then, look at the feedback. So then step 9 is, if you can do long term, after you've dated and you've got engaged and you've had, you had coffee and you dated and you got engaged or whatever, then, you're going to have a long-term relationship that has all the stakeholders involved in some fashion that makes sense. So, and another one of my great quotes, to succeed you must first improve, to improve you must practice, to practice you must first learn, to learn you must first fail. So I know a lot of people whose first cause marketing venture did not work as they thought it was going to. Some people have walked away from it saying, man, if we'd just done this a little bit different, it'd have been really good instead of average or not worth the time maybe, but it wasn't a bad, I'm not giving up on cause marketing in general, it's just we didn't have a clue. There will be growing pains. I mean, would you say that's true, Carl? I mean, you work with a lot of nonprofits and you know cause marketing. There'll be a lot of growing pains, right? Right. And so don't give up. Learn from all those experiences, because, what I think people should do is to have those long-term relationships. The longer term, if done right, the easier it is. If you're in sales, the hardest thing to do is to acquire a customer, right? Costs you the most money, the most time, the most energy, the most effort. It's easier to keep one than it is to acquire one. So if you can do that, if you can keep a relationship, then that's really good. So that's the last of my steps, and there's probably a whole lot more. Now then, I want to do just a little quick review, and let's see if this is cause marketing. Again, there's her. How about this? Cause marketing, kind of the same thing. L'Oreal, another L'Oreal. They were really into this, but different nonprofits. This was all in the same Sunday flyer. So someone at whoever makes L'Oreal got into this pretty good. How about this? Pet Lover Savings, helping seniors adopt shelter pets. They've set aside a fund. They'll donate $175,000 to reduce the fee for senior citizens adopting pets through our senior adoption program. I mean, that's not a bad thing. Not maybe as direct, but some pretty good stuff. Here's one for UNICEF, Trick or Treat for UNICEF. Here's another one. A drop of Dawn makes a difference. At Dawn saves wildlife. Doesn't say what it is, so it's kind of cause advertising maybe. Here's one, Bounty. We're giving $500,000 to charity. Help us decide how to share the gift. Trying to get their customers involved. Not bad, huh? Somebody said, how about if you bring your customers in? Anybody see the pink Campbell soup? I think the pink thing's a little overdone when it goes on Campbell soup. Did anybody see this one right here? Speaking of McDonald's. $1, this is save money at Elitch's. $1 off every coupon redeemed will be donated to Ronald McDonald House Charities. It's kind of nice. Macy's giving back their commitment to the community. Here's one that was in Sunday's paper. Take a stand for charity. And C&H Sugar will donate. They provide kids age 7 to 12 and parents with an opportunity to get involved in communities and give back by raising funds through good old-fashioned lemonade stands. By pledging to donate profits to your favorite charity, you can get a free lemonade stand. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? So I'd like to do that maybe, and see what's going on. Here is AT&T. I would suggest everyone write a social responsibility report. It need not be however many pages this is. If it's a one-pager or a one-paragrapher or 2 paragraphs, I think that would be very good. Post it on your website where people can see it. If you like to read these things, there's a great one that Staples has. It's called the Staples Soul. Go to Staples and look up Staples Soul. Compassionate Capitalism by Mark Benioff. He's the CEO of Salesforce. They set aside 1% of their stock when they were before they went public to fund a foundation. It is an incredible read. This is by Mark Benioff again, The Business of Changing the World, 20 Great Leaders on Strategic Corporate Philanthropy. They wrote a chapter about what companies were doing. Then they interviewed the CEO, and it was about a 5 or 6 page interview. So you got the perspective of the journalist, and then you got the interview with the CEO. So this is Mark Benioff, Benioff, Chairman and CEO of Salesforce. Another great read. It's called The Business of Changing the World, 20 Great Leaders on Strategic Corporate Philanthropy. And shortly at causeinspired.com, there will be a list of this stuff. I'm trying to figure out, there's now a placeholder site kind of. I got a friend who wants me to build a little cause-inspired network on Ning. I've not yet ventured into the world of Ning, but I had 2 people actually tell me that in the last 3 days. So someone was asking me earlier about who would maybe be a good cause marketing consultant. You may have some ideas. Rebecca Saltman is good, but she's now full-time at the Center for Colorado Center for Sustainable Alliances or something. Yeah. Jean Galloway, another one. Sue Hyatt is another one. Sue's actually writing a book. She's got a site. I don't have all those resources on me, but I have cards. If you'll send me an email or if you'll talk to Tom, I'd be delighted to share those resources. M.L. Hansen, that's right. And Carl, the National Center for Community Relations, which is changing its name to
National Center for Community
Collaboration. A lot of people, that's a great organization to go check out if you want to try to find some people who do that. My experience has been that there aren't a whole lot of companies, and I don't know what you guys do, so here's a resource right here, speak up right here. I hope more PR firms engage in this deeply, and that would be wonderful. Your name of your company again is Ground Floor Media. And if there's others that I'm missing, it's not intentional, it's just that I don't know a lot of them. I probably know more of them. I've been on the road the last year out there than I have been almost in Denver. So my final thought to you is that this is something that I think can change the world. whether the world is this big for you or whether it's monstrous. And I would encourage everyone to take a look at what they can do, however small. And we think everyone can make a difference in some way. That's why we call our company Make the Difference Network. In the back of your handout, there is a short dissertation on the offer that we've made. Our business model is pretty simple. We give every nonprofit that qualifies 501c3 in America the opportunity to have a free membership at Make the Difference Network. We're a cause-oriented social network. That gives them 5 wishes, the basic membership. It gives them the whole social network, friends, blogs, friends groups. The donation system, we hook up a PayPal or a Google checkout account. We never touch the money. It goes directly to the nonprofit. They can upload a gigabyte of video if they want to. And at the request of nonprofits, we created a premium membership that gives a nonprofit 50 wishes. It gives them 5 gigabytes of storage, and it gives them access to the MTD and Learning Center, which is going to hopefully bring business education, both in technology as well as marketing and organizational development, to the nonprofit sector. And if a nonprofit were to buy that, that would be $70 a month, the premium membership. They pay for it themselves. Because businesses came to us and said, wow, I'd love to sponsor that nonprofit on Make the Difference Network. I said, oh, we'll create a way to do that. So we created what we call a Businesses Who Care local cause sponsorship. And a business pays $100 a month if we were to charge for it, and you guys are going to get it for free. They would pay $100 a month, and then we put a small acknowledgement ad on the home page in each of the 50 pages, the up to 50 wish pages, the blog page, the video gallery page, that links back to their business profile, where they can say who we are, why we're supporting community, and has the ability to have a coupon, a downloadable coupon. So depending on what the business wants to do, they could just be a coupon that says print this out and bring it into my restaurant or into my dry cleaner or into whatever it is, and I'll give you a nice discount. Or they could really get involved in cause marketing, we hope, many will. Said not only will I give you 10% off, but I'll make a 10% donation back to the nonprofit where I printed this out from off of their site. And that would be that's the local sponsorship. I made the offer because I need social proof. I have a selfish motive. We need to prove how this local sponsorship model works. We've got a couple of large organizations with a lot of distributors that'll be rolling this out in a couple of months, as soon as the summer travel is over. But I thought if you guys are inspired a little bit, you might want to take me up on my offer and say, wow, I'll go join as a free member, I'll build a profile, I'll encourage a nonprofit to join, and then after they join, I'm going to call, the process is automated, except not in the, when I give it away free, because I didn't build the coupon thing in yet, a promo code in, but you call me and I'll go in the database and we'll hook you up with that nonprofit, and then your 125 by 125 display ad or your text ad will display linking back to your profile. I would love to have as many people as are here or whoever wants to play take us up on this, because I need success stories. And I want to publicize those success stories. I want to interview them on Cause Marketing Radio and all the publicity we do. I want to be able to say, and this little business right here, run by Jay Schwartz, did this. And because he supported a nonprofit and gave him this gift of technology, training, and traffic, his business grew. And it grew this much by doing this. You could, if you were going to pay for it, I tell people you could give that $100 gift to the nonprofit. That'd be a nice little gift. Or you could, if you gave them the gift of technology, training, and traffic, and they raised $500 a month, you just leveraged your $100 by 5. There's an old saying that the Chinese say, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, right? Teach him how to fish, you feed him for life. There's an old gray-haired guy at the front of the room now that said, give a nonprofit a donation, you feed him for a day. Teach him how to attract donors and build a social network, and you feed him for life. This sponsorship that we created, we hope will feed nonprofits for life. They'll build a social network so they can share it. They'll teach their members to build social networks. All it shows is a node that goes out, and they can tell 1,000 people with a few keystrokes about something they're doing, whether it's a wish that just got posted or an event they're trying to do, or someone that needs help. So I'm delighted that you guys spent your Saturday with me. I have cards if you want to contact me. I urge you to play in the right way for you, and hopefully you will be inspired to do something greater than you were going to do before you showed up today. Thank you very much.